Today, we're spending time with Paul Dunn, who is a legend in the accounting profession globally. That's not my opinion. It's a fairly well documented fact. And Paul's been a legend in my own career. To give you a little bit of background, Paul is a 4-time TEDx speaker. He's a senior fellow in one of the world's leading think tanks, and he consults to and mentors businesses all around the world. He was honoured as a social innovation fellow in his new home of Singapore. When I met Paul, he was Australian based, but now lives in Singapore. And Paul shares something, that same attribute, with the film star that many of us have heard of, and he's also a philanthropist, Jet Li, and also the Walmart chairman, Rob Walton. Paul was one of the first 10 people in Australia in Hewlett-Packard when it was first based here. And then he created the very first computer company in Australia, Hartley Computer. And then off the back of that, Paul created the Results Corporation, which is where I first crossed paths with Paul. It was a wonderful chapter in my life and in my career. And Results Corporation was a consultancy in modern direct marketing techniques through to small and medium-sized businesses. And Results worked with 23,000 businesses at the time. So another mind-blowing number, if you're ready for it, 17,700 accountants. So I'll say that again, 17,700 accountants have come through Paul's breakthrough program for accountants. And click raise hand if you've heard of or even attended the Accountants Boot Camp. The number of people that have come up to me over the years and have said, boot camp changed my life. It's just remarkable. In fact, Paul and I spent some time together at QuickBooks Connect in San Jose late last year. And the number of people, I'm hanging with Paul, they come up and they say, oh my God, it's Paul Dunn. And some of them would genuflect or bow. I'm not making anything up. And then they would say things like, you shaped my life, or coming to boot camp was a turning point for me. And some of them were partners in firms. Some of them were team members within firms at the time that now have successful firms of their own. And in my mind, as all of these people are saying, oh my God, Paul, you did this, you did that, I'm seeing like this family tree of influence, because some of these people that were saying, wow, you changed my life, they were influenced by people that were influenced by Paul. So Paul really has had an incredible ripple effect around the world, because almost 18,000 people went through the boot camp. Now, as an offshoot of that, there's over 250,000 companies, so small and medium-sized businesses around the world, continue to use the training programs that Paul and Results created. And Paul really does push the boundaries in many ways, predominantly with mindset and philosophy, but in many, many ways, including technology. Paul was featured in Forbes magazine alongside Richard Branson, you may have heard of him, in a global piece on disruptors in business. Now, within the context of today, Paul's now chairman of B1G1, which is an acronym for Buy One, Give One. So it's about business for good. It's a global giving initiative that's already enabled businesses to create over 184 million, another mind-blowing number, 184 million giving impacts globally. And Paul is an inspiration. Paul still runs competitively, and he is a machine with presenting all around the world, and he travels 800,000 miles every year. Don't know how you do it, Paul. You are an inspiration.
My baggage, fortunately, does it most of the time too, Michael.
You must have bad luck with that baggage. Paul, without taking up any further time, thanks everyone for letting me set the scene. Over to you, Paul. I'll come back later and I'll keep an eye on the questions and chime in here and there.
That'd be great. That'd be great. And MC, let me say that one of the best chapters in my life was when we were working together back then, and it's such a thrill to be able to continue to do that. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be here with you. And of course, when I say you in that particular case, I also mean you who are joining us as MC said, right around the world. That's where I am, by the way, right now. That's not the view from my office window, because I'm not in the office today. It's much too noisy in the B1G1 office, but that is this great place where I now call home. That is Singapore. It's a brilliant, brilliant place. And I would expect that many of you have been through Changi Airport, and I hope to get lots of emails now saying, hey, I'm coming to Singapore. Can we pop and have a cup of coffee or something like that? So anyway, thank you so much for being here. And just to add a little bit to that context that MC so lovely, beautifully gave me, this is one of the people that we also met when we were at QBC This is Ron Baker, and this is the breakthrough book. Actually, MC, that book is now the only book that Wiley sell, and they sell lots of it at $85 a pop. So it's kind of interesting thing. And one more thing just before we get underway. I was doing a program last week in the United Kingdom where someone referred to me as the godfather of accounting. And I thought, wow, that's a bit tough, you know. So I was very honored to get this in 2015, which is, you know, this whole outstanding contribution thing, which is really, really cool. And it's such a brilliant thing that I can continue to do that. Right now, if I just bring that up to date, I'm very thrilled to be doing this, serving, mentoring, growing some 397 firms right now. And actually, those numbers are the wrong way around. That's 2,746 businesses globally in B1G1. But today, obviously, is not about me. It's not about MC. It's actually about you. That's, by the way, what I do. And the exciting thing is that there has never, ever, ever been a time like this. And so one of the things I'd like us to consider, I noticed there were some people joining us from the West, but we're not flying to the West today, but we are going to be taking what I hope is a very, very interesting journey together. And it's a journey, not a sort of a high-speed jet journey, but it is actually fast-paced. But whenever I think of journey, I think of this quote from the French philosopher Marcel Proust. He says, the real voyage of discovery, and this is so, so critical for us today, is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And one of the things that, and there's a scary set of eyes for you right there, but I'm certain that one of the things that's going to happen today is that we are all going to get new eyes. There's no doubt about that at all as we go through. By the way, our journey today is not for everyone, and we'll put a little poll up in just a moment so that we can see who everyone is, but it's not for everyone. It is not let me talk about quickly what it's not about and what it is about. It's not about better ways of reporting on history, you'll be thrilled to know, but it is a great way of creating history. It's not how you change what you do, it's really how you change why you do what you do. And once you do that, it's just amazing the different clarity and the different magnetism that your firm creates. It's not how you use IT, although IT is going to play a part in it. It's actually how you impact humanity, and it's not about marketing. MC knows only too well, and what a thrill it is to be with you, Michael, today. That it's not just about marketing, this whole thing. Marketing is really all about connecting. It's about connecting to ourselves, connecting to our teams, and connecting to our clients, and of course to our community, and indeed to the world. And today is absolutely not about you standing still, but it is about you taking a stand. And we'll talk about how that happens in just a little while. And so let me give you a promise, very important to have some promises. I've got 4 of them for you. One, that as a result of you applying the ideas today, not just listening to them, but applying them, that's what's going to happen. Attract and retain seriously great clients, attract and retain fantastic team members. Again, no doubt about that. We're going to show you how to create a great impact in your community and in our world, and we're going to transform your firm in the process. But again, so what that means is this is not a passive journey. It's one where we are going to get seriously involved. And by the way, the good news is, those of you who are obviously familiar with MC, the good news is that everything that we're talking about today is very much in line with that great work that Michael has done around the value pyramid, this whole thing here. One of the things you're going to see is this impacts you and the firm at every area of that pyramid. So, and by the way, one other thing you will need. Now, I know people say you'll need this, but no question, you will need a pen and you will need a piece of paper, and one other accessory you will need a phone. Yes, you will need a phone. So make sure you've got your phone switched on. Don't go looking at all the text messages on there. They're not from us. We're not going to send you text messages, don't worry. But you will need a phone at a couple of points through our time together. Now, Michael, talking of getting phones, would it be okay with you if I just check who's here so that we know how to, how can I say, how to talk about what we're going to talk about? Would that be okay if I just do a little poll? Would you be okay with that? Okay.
Go for it.
Whoops-a-daisy, let me just do that before I get into fundamental share right here, or fundamental share. Here's what I'd love you to do. Jump up, you'll see it in just a moment, the moment I can click my thing. Here we go. So what we want you to do is you just tell us a little bit, and this is a very little bit. There you go, it's up there. So it says, tell us about about you, and it says, in my firm, I am an owner or a partner, or I am a team member. Go ahead, pop it in there. And this gives us, thank you for this, by the way, this gives us fantastic information on how to present the ideas to you. And in fact, already just because of what you said there, I can see a particular slide that later on in our time together is going to be very useful if you are a team member. So thank you so much. Normally we give you 10 seconds to end the poll, so let's just do that. Tick, 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 tick. Okay, you've ended the poll, and MC, as I see it, we had around 84% of people who were owners or partners of firms. And so well done, owners and partners of firms, because what many partners and owners of firms do say, it's not about me, it's about you, the team member, you should go to this program. So I'm thrilled that you actually did that. So let's talk about this fundamental shift that's going on in the way in which people do business. And I'm not just talking about accounting firms here, I'm talking about, and by the way, I promise not to use the word disrupt today. I promise. I just did it, but I'm not going to use it. This is not about that D word. This is about a T word. This is about transformation. Transformation. The transformation that goes on in your firm and the transformation that you bring for your clients once you apply these things. Now, the reason I said earlier on there's never been a time like this is because there is a fundamental shift going on. This guy, David Rose, used to be a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, where MC and I were last November. And he put it really, really well. He said this, any company, whoops-a-daisy, he said it a bit too quickly there, didn't he? Let me go back to him again. There we go. He said this, any company designed for success in the 20th century is doomed to failure. Notice that, it's doomed to failure. There's no option. Doomed to failure in the 21st. And what that is about is not so much about what you do, it's about the model that you operate under. We're going to talk a little bit about those models as well. So, and this is not just true for you, of course, it's true for your clients, and you need to tell them that as well. And let's take a look at the big world of finance. This guy here, to his friends, he's called Larry, but he's officially Lawrence Fink. He is the CEO of BlackRock. Now, many of you who have financial management as part of your, or financial advice as part of your firms will know of this guy. He is the CEO of BlackRock. BlackRock is the largest company in terms of funds under management that the world has ever seen. I read a little piece on him recently which says every day he controls the outcome of $6 trillion. So and he's obviously a public company, well, not obviously, but they are. And so he gets every year to report to Wall Street on what he sees is going on. And on the 5th of January 2018, he said this. Now, this was like a bomb being dropped on Wall Street. The reverberations are still going on. He said, to prosper over time, and by the way, every company, you and I know this, but this was the first time that anybody had said this on Wall Street. Every company must not only deliver financial performance, but look at that last bit, but also, and that means you, by the way, but also show how it makes a positive contribution to society. Now, if that's not enough for you, have a look at the kind of PS. Well, it wasn't the PS, it was the last paragraph. Now, bear in mind, he's distributing and investing in startups and all of that kind of stuff and distributing that $6 trillion to get a return for his investors. And he says, by the way, if you don't do that, we will not fund you. Now, once you get the size of BlackRock and once you get what he has just said, then you will understand that something which you've already felt, no doubt, is going on. By the way, he updated that in this year rather, earlier on, and basically doubled down on what he said there. So let's take a look at those two things, because what B1G1 does, which we'll get to talk about later on, yes, it helps you do that, but in the process, or for those of you joining us from the US, in the process, it transforms your firm. And you're going to see that big time. And so the context around this, let me give you some additional context, is this. I want to sort of, if we can, just to go back in time. Just let's go back in time a little ways to the 23rd of September. And we're going to shift countries. We are going to go to Geneva, actually, and in that particular building that you see right there on the 23rd of September. Now, this is a critical date. This date will absolutely, or the thing that happened on this date, will absolutely impact your firm. And I'm going to give you some data on this, and indeed countries, as you will see, in a way that we never could have imagined. So in that building that particular day were people like Bill Gates, the CEO of Verizon was there, who I met last week in the US, Paul Pullman, the former CEO of Unilever, was there, and this guy, the guy Michael mentioned in the introduction, was there as well. Now, he doesn't often speak, he's usually interviewed. But this particular time, and I was tuned in, I wasn't there, it was live streamed, and I was in my home in Singapore, and in a crackle, and at 10:40 in the evening, Branson took the stage, and amazingly, he spoke. He was not interviewed. And this is what he said, as in to get everybody on. He said, let's explore this, where the boundaries between work and higher purpose are merging into one, where doing good really is good for business. And then he went on to say this is the first time he'd ever been in the United Nations building. And he said, there is a reason why I'm here today. And it's because something happened, or is about to happen, that has never happened before. So the only reason I am here is because this is the first time in history where the world body has acknowledged something that you and I, as business owners and as entrepreneurs, know to be true. And it's this. Now listen to what he said. It's this. And he said this in that building, right? He said, governments, it is not governments who change our world. Let me say that again. It is not governments, he said, who change our world. Certainly governments can enable things, but it's not governments who change our world. It is businesses and entrepreneurs who change our world. And so what I'm about to show you is this is what he says, is something which for the first time doesn't require companies to sign off on it. What it does require is for you and I as business owners to get involved in it. And he said, here's what I'm here to launch, the so-called global goals, or sometimes called the sustainable goals, or the sustainable development goals. Now, you may be taking pictures with that camera that I got you of this. By the way, just jump up on the chat. MC, this will be interesting. Just jump up on the chat and let us know whether you are familiar with the global goals. That is to say, you know of them. Doesn't mean you know everyone backwards and forwards, but you know of them. This is a very important point. So do jump up on the chat and let us know right now, because when we did this in the US, only 4% of accountants actually knew. And that's a tragedy, as you're about to see. But anyway, so thank you for jumping up on the chat. I hope you're monitoring that there, Michael. I can see it coming in, but I haven't got it coming up on my screen. So these are 17 things, 17 targets, which we, please listen to the next two words, have to reach by 2030. That is, we as businesses have to make sure that this happens by 2030. Otherwise, very dire consequences. Right? Now, we'll be talking some more about this, in particular to how countries are now doing some things with this, particularly the country in which I'm speaking with you from now, or from which I'm speaking with you. So he said, it's my pleasure to launch these global goals together with Bill Gates, together with Paul Pullman, together with all these guys. And then he said, here's the key. Businesses must become the real force for good in our world. Let me tell you the way I would change that. I won't. In fact, I can show you on the screen. the profession, there is no doubt in my mind at all that accountants change lives. That was a deliberate pause, by the way, not because I was thinking of something to say. You change lives. And the moment that you understand that, the moment that you get that, everything in your firm changes. And what we're about to do is to show you how you can do that in an even more profound way once you understand and adopt these things. I used to say that what this is a pathway for business because of what the goals are, because it gives us a common language, if you will. But now I would say this way, it's not a pathway for business, it's a pathway for your business and for something interesting that we'll get into in a minute, for all of the businesses that you work with. But it's more than a pathway for business. This is actually a pathway for humanity. That's what this is. Now you might say, well, hang on, Paul. I mean, we're accountants. Come on, you know, we kind of, yeah, we sort of agree, but you know, well, let me show you a group of 6,000 accountants. This is 6,000 accountants who, in November, when MC and I were over there in Silicon Valley, they were in Sydney. 6,000 of them at the big international accounting conference. It happened that the last speaker that day was talking about what you and I are talking about right now. In fact, this guy represented Prince Charles that particular day. And he said he wanted to check that everybody was up for this. And he asked them, he said, do you think accountants can lead this charge? That's the question he asked. Have a listen to the answer. Well, you can't listen to it, but you can read it. Yes, we can, said 6,000 accountants. But it doesn't really matter what 6,000 accountants say. What matters is what you say. So what do you think? In the chat box, if this feels comfortable for you, and I'm going to show you how to do it, by the way, in just a minute, but if this feels comfortable, if you see this as part of your responsibility to make happen with your clients, then just in the chat box, go ahead, type, yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can really do this, given the tools. And we obviously are going to give you some tools. So good to see that chat box working again. So with that in mind, I said this is all about getting a new set of eyes. As you're thinking about whether we can or we can't, then let's talk about some sets of eyes that this is important for. I was in a cafe here in Singapore on the 6th of April. You can see from that screen that that's where it was, and or when it was. And I saw a newspaper, and that's what it said on the top right of the newspaper, the local newspaper. We have not inherited the world from our forefathers. We have borrowed it from our children. So when we talk about new eyes here, that is effectively what you see on your screen right there are the new eyes that we really have to think about when we really get involved with this thing. So what we've done is developed a process called the legacy pathway. And you might want to take a note of this legacy pathway. And there are just 3 things in the pathway. So the first one is leaving one. Now, you obviously don't have any choice as to whether you leave one. I mean, the question is, because you are going to leave one, the question is it a legacy of consumption or is it one of contribution? So whenever we think of the word legacy, now remember I call this a pathway, we think of it as leaving one. But there are 2 other L words that I think for the profession are really important, and they're this. Living one, in fact, that's important for all of us, every second, living one, and particularly from the profession, leveraging one. So being able to do something in your firm, which then stands as this beacon for all of your clients to be involved with as well as your team members as well. And the way to do that is to make sure that you're doing it in your firm. And it's immensely easy to do, as you will see in just a moment. No spreadsheets, none of that sort of stuff. No difficult conversations. And Living one means embedding it, making sure, and you're going to see some examples of this, making sure that every time you do something, something great happens. Another way of thinking of embedding it, it's baking it, making it right into the core of what you do, and then leveraging it. That is to say, doing it with your clients. So those are the, if you will, the three things, or the six there, but really the pathway is those three things. And that's a nice little background there, but let me just change the background for a minute, because that might look like your firm. So I want you to imagine doing all of those things in your firm. And just coming up right now is we are going to make that so easy for you to do. So this very important work that we have to do. And the reason we're going to make it easy is because of the new set of eyes that this lady had. Her name is Masami Sato. And she is a pretty interesting person. In fact, let me give you some evidence of that. She's the founder of B1G1, Business for Good. She is a 3 times best-selling author. She is a 2 times TEDx speaker, and she's a finalist. This last award, by the way, is huge in what's called the Inspired Leadership Awards. Previous winners of that were Branson, Melinda Gates, and so on. And she has a new set of eyes. And she used those new set of eyes to ask great questions. And what she did was help create, and happily she got me involved in it, in one of the most amazing business as a force for good movements we've yet seen on our planet. And it focuses not on the big end of town, as many of these things do, but on small to medium scale business. And she called it initially Buy One, Give One, but then we changed it into B1G1. And the sheer impact that it has and continues to have is amazing. So with your permission, let's just explore what that means. So here we were in a mentoring session. Now, normally I was mentoring her. This is in late 2006, early 2007. And I was mentoring her, and normally it's the mentors, as you know, that ask the question. But she came to this particular session, and she asked me a question. She asked the question that was on the left. She said, I've been thinking. In fact, I haven't been able to sleep. She said, I wonder what business would look like if every time business was done, something great happened in our world. And I said, like what? And she said, well, imagine you go, she actually used the words Harvey Norman. Imagine you go to Harvey Norman and you buy a plasma TV. And I said, whoa, Masami, you mentioned buy one, give one. Well, if I do that, they're not going to give me another TV. So, what's this about? And she said, well, no, you go to get a TV on account of how you want better vision. So how would it be if you did that and somebody who could not see gets the gift of sight? And I was like, whoa, how cool would that be? And it was at that moment that we started exploring this. And I'll give you some numbers later on as to where that has gone. So then she said, well, what if we could build a system and a movement? None of us knew how to do that, to let business owners do this and put it right at the heart of their business. And so once you're part of B1G1, and there are people on the call who already are, by the way, part of B1G1, then you can say, if you want to, you don't have to be overt. Every time someone does business with us, something great happens in our world. Now you might say, well, what's that look like? Well, let me show you through some of what we call the giving stories that people create. So you could say, every time we send an email, just think about that. Every time we send an email, a child in need gets access to an e-learning program that changes the outcomes of their life. Just think about that. How about this? Whenever we create a new client, 18 homeless people get a nutritious meal. By the way, the things that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, these are all under your control, because you have something like 800 really high-impact projects to choose from in B1G1. And you're in total control of everything we're looking at here. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Or whenever we sell our premium product, meaning you, then again, you can choose. We help a farmer run their beekeeping business for an entire year. There's all sorts of things you could do. You get the idea, linking what you do, embedding it to making something great happen. Or whenever someone attends one of your workshops, for example, just imagine you could say, 57 children get access to pure, life-saving water. Just imagine that. And let's go further on that imagination. What are the triggers? When could you use something like this if you chose to? You don't have to do any of these, but if you chose to. Well, you can see some there when someone's giving a referral, when someone does something on time, how you can give people positive feedback. By the way, I've got to tell you, the team members and your children, if you have any, absolutely love this. It could be a milestone, a birthday, or it could be when someone's going the extra mile, they're meeting you, they're coming to an event, or even it's a great way for saying sorry, believe it or not. Now, let me show you how that works so that you can really kind of get hold of what it looks like. And to do that, MC mentioned that we're very privileged to work with people right around the world, and we can learn from that as well. So let's just go for a kickoff to New York. And here's a guy, his name is Stuart Mordfin. And he runs Mordfin Group right there in New York, and a tiny firm, not a big firm at all. And he was one of the first people in the US, actually, about 5 years ago, to join V1G1. And so one of the things, if you looked at those triggers, let me show you what he does, and indeed what you can do. So he decided that wouldn't it be great that when we complete a tax return, and you can see a US tax return on there, that we rescue 18 meals for the hungry. He happens to have an interesting thing going with the homeless people. So let me just look at that. Now, let me show you how you might choose to set that up in V1G1. So just imagine now this is you. And what you're going to do is you're going to add what we call a new giving story. So listen in now. Here we go. So we type in the trigger when we complete a tax return, meaning you. Now you can put a picture together with that to remind you of what it looks like. So there's the US tax form going in. You can shuffle it around. And now you choose a project, and you can choose a category. He's going to choose food. You could have chosen education. You could have chosen any number of things. And now they all come up that meet that thing down the bottom right-hand side. I know the bottom rather. I know they're coming through quickly. Oh, here it is. Look at this. And up here, see this? You can actually check which of the global goals this is impacting. And you can see, look at that, 11 cents to actually do this. And so now you select it. Isn't that amazing? So now, and he thinks, well, that's a bit stingy, so why don't we make it 18? And so now what their firm has done is created a giving story. You don't have to do V1G1 like this, but this is a very cool way of doing it, and you can actually automate that whole thing as well. You can do it in an ad hoc way as well. Now, so far, so good, and hopefully you saw that was pretty easy. But remember we talked about marketing as connection, remember that? So let's talk about what might happen, and again, you're in control of this, with the person who is your client who just had you do that tax return. Well, you can choose on V1G1 to send them and automatically generated, but you control it, a gratitude certificate. You can do that via email, or you can do that like this. And you can read it. Specifically, we want to thank you. You see the fourth paragraph there. We celebrated that by rescuing 18 meals. Now, obviously, they haven't rescued the meals. We've done that. And then we're thrilled to be serving you, and we're especially pleased that we can do something great when we do business together. And remember, that was just 11 cents. A simple goal here is to keep on making great things happen in our world together. So the thing that I want you to see if you can get here is the connection. It's very, very different than the normal way of doing things. Now you might say, well, we're in Australia. What would that look like? And I'll show you some more examples of this as well. It turns out you would know, by the way, that there used to be a huge petrol sniffing problem in rural Australia, and the NGO that we work with actually went to Shell and to BP and said, why don't you make petrol that people can't sniff? And as a result, they've reduced that by 92%. And so now what they're doing is they're creating these learning hubs. And so you might say, well, you've celebrated that, we've done your tax return, and we've celebrated that by giving a child in need in rural Australia access to a brilliant learning hub. It equips them with marketable skills to enhance their life outcomes. Just because of what you did in your accounting firm. Just think about the shift that does. And that's, by the way, one of the things that people talk about, that this actually shifts the spirit in the firm, hence the transformation. Let's look at a client. This one actually was, I was talking with last night, actually. And this is up in Mooloolaba. It's a cafe. You may have some cafes. It's called CK. And run by Petra and Martin. And, normal kind of business. And they looked at, okay, so we need to embed this. And so what can we do? Well, obviously, one of the triggers would be when someone pays their bill. So, those little black American Express folders that you get when you do it. So what they did, they just created 7 different colors of business cards, kind of like business cards, that they put in the bill. And this is what it looks like. It says, we want to let you know, this is the one for Tuesday, by the way. Grateful that you came in today. So this is one of your clients. Imagine this. And then let's blow this one up. And thank you so much for being here. And because it's Tuesday, we've celebrated that by giving the child in need access to life-changing. Just imagine if you were having a cup of coffee and that happened to you. And you should see what we do on other days too. And you can trace that on their map. And so let's pretend it's Wednesday. So you go back in, and because it's Wednesday, we've celebrated that by protecting a fruit tree for a family. And then similarly, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so on. So hopefully you're getting the idea of how this works. Now, here's a really interesting example. I told you that this attracts fantastic team members, and we know that team members want to work with businesses that are doing great things. There's all sorts of stats on that, and I won't go through them, but there's massive, massive stats. So have a look at this. This is in Australia now, and this is Kim down at Basic Bookkeepers. And we'll flip into their giving page up here so you can see, whoops, Daisy, let me do it this way. If I just go, cross your fingers for me, because I'm going to the web right now. I'm now going live, so we can see it live. And hopefully, MC, the web is working. Looks like it is, at least it's working on my end. And then again, this is running at about 400 megabits per second here in Singapore. Now, you can see this is under who we are, and this is actually under their client community. And so you can see they do some interesting things with TED Knox and so on. And then they talk about their why, they talk about their vision, their purpose, all really cool things. But now look at this. You can see here how each team member, and if I slowed that down, by the way, you would see that that's actually counting up. Each team member has their own goals that they connect with in the overall company might be doing this one, but then each team member has their own. Put up on the chat if you think that is really, really cool. This is how you start to transform and you get engagements with your team members. So go ahead, tell us what you think on the chat, whether you think that's like a good idea. So many people love that. So right there. Let me go back to my, thank you for the chat, that's great. So let's go back over here and let's show you another example. This is one from Australia. This is a training company, and this is where you really want to stay close. Don't you dare look away right now. Now, everybody who's a B1G1 client has this thing called an impact tab on their website. It's something that we create with you. And so I'm just going to go to this person's impact tab right here. And when we hit it, we see their why, we see their impacts. Look at this. We in B1G1 are tracking in real time every single impact. But look at how they're being tracked. It's not about the money that you're giving. It's about the impacts that you're creating. And shouldn't it giving always be about that? And look at this. And that, by the way, you pop up on your website. You just copy and paste. It works automatically in real time. And then look at this. This could be on your website right now, your impact, not the global B1G1 impact, but specifically your impact, if you so wanted to, right there on your website. Again, let us know what you think about that. Now, interestingly, when people look at this, these kind of things, they think, oh my gosh, this is going to, this is going to be like thousands of dollars to do. I heard an estimate last week of $18,000. It's not. It's nowhere near that to do this. But let's come closer to home. Let's go to Ballina. This is a great example. This is Collins Hume, I should say. And you will notice, now more on this in a moment, you will notice on their website, the global goals are right there on their website. Now, these guys are in a community of 26,400 people. And you're going to see some really interesting things here. We are going to go to this again. We're going live now. This is not a video or anything else. Here's their live site. And what I'm going to do, let me just move my Zoom window for a minute so I can actually get there. What we're going to do is go to this Giving Impact page right here. And you'll see something interesting. Look at that. Would you like to be having that as something you do, impacting lives around the world? Now you might say, well, hang on, Paul, we're more interested in doing global. Well, I understand that. So have a look at this. Here it says why we give, and here it says where we give, where. And where I want you to look right now, just do this for me if you would. Just let me put a different color in here. Just go looking around about here. Let's go there. Okay. And none of those projects are B1G1 projects. In fact, the board of B1G1 rejects 9 out of every 10. So what that means is when you see a B1G1 project, you know it's a fantastic project. So now here are these guys supporting local things, and you should do that as well, by the way, but having that on their B1G1 page. Now, why on earth would they do that? Let me clear that little note right there, or that little annotation. There we go. And let me just scroll down, because now they talk about, we also believe that our giving can make an impact on lives around the world. And if I just scroll down, and if only, I've got to close this little thing up here, and then I can scroll down. There we go. So let me just scroll down. And now I see their map, I see their 12 million givings, and so on and so forth. And so what they have discovered is this, and it's very important that you get this. Local giving is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And we can do that, of course, as you see. But what the reality is that local and global is awesome, because all of a sudden it gives you a totally different or bigger presence, as you can see right there from the map. So hopefully that's kind of useful stuff for you. And see, I know we've got to leave some time for questions, but by the way, let us know on the chat how this is resonating with you. Now, you remember we talked about the global goals. I'm going to show you how you decorate your office. And interestingly enough, I told you that those 4 things that we promised you are so easy to do. You are about to see why. I got 3 slides to run through, and then the 4th slide is really going to go, whoa, I get it. I really get it. So I talked about what's happening with the global goal. In fact, I'll show you the first slide. The first slide I'm going to show you. You'll get it right here. Have a look at this. This is a boardroom, as in an accountant's office. Okay. There you see the global goals displayed behind you, together with the B1G1 thing. You can ignore the B1G1 thing if you wish, but you shouldn't, as you'll see why in a minute. So there are the global goals. So imagine now you're sitting in that chair in your office as a client. What is the question that you are going to get asked? Well, it's not too difficult, is it? They're going to be asking, what are those things? And then just imagine now that you had a way of saying, oh, this is what we do, and by the way, we can help you do that as well. I'm going to show you how you do that in just a minute. It is amazing how that picture works. Absolutely amazing. And by the way, we are going to update the picture because have a look at what happened in Singapore, and by the way, happening in New South Wales at a government level as well. This is how we have usually referred to for the last 3 years the global goals. Everybody refers to them that way. But Temasek, which is the sovereign fund right here in Singapore, who, by the way, being advised by someone out of Melbourne, are now doing impact investing and really interesting things with, look at this. Now, see the change up? They've just changed them up and said it's all about A, B, C. Just like that. And then they've put some labels around A, B, C. So active economy is this: productive jobs, sustainable cities, fulfilling lives. Seriously, who wouldn't want to sign up for that? What about beautiful society? Resilient individuals, inclusive communities. And this is the promise, beyond the promise that we made to you today. A just society. And how about clean earth? This one's really simple. Fresh air, clean water, cool world. And with this and B1G1 in place, then you can make that happen literally from all of the things that you're doing in your accounting firm. So hopefully that's kind of cool. But you can also do some other things. Some of you would know, so many people talk about Inspire, the guys up in Brisbane. I put these two guys together, by the way, and MC knows them very well as well. One of the things that I'm very proud of is that they actually call themselves life-changing accountants on their website, because that's what they do. But one of the things that they do, and they've developed it now over the last 3 years. Whoops, someone is calling me, probably my psychiatrist. So let me just get rid of that. There we go. So apologies about that, and I'll switch it off. That's the best thing to do, isn't it? So one of the things that they do, that Ben and Harvey do, is they actually set not just business goals, but they set giving goals, and increasingly more and more people are doing that. And so they have a process, they call it Day for $1, which essentially says this: we give 1 day of access to food, water, health, or sanitation to a family in need for every $1 in tax we proactively save a small business. You can see right there, this, by the way, was 6 months ago. That's now up to just under $10 million that they've saved through their Day for $1 campaign. They'll happily tell you all about it, by the way, but they now transfer that into a giving thing. So they've actually made some 7 million giving impacts as a result of that. So imagine them telling their client, look at that, you just saved $17,000, and then being able to give them a little certificate that says, and as well as that, you know, so the lives of 17,000 kids have just been positively impacted. So again, imagine that. And by the way, that whole thing, just blow that up for you, that whole thing is something, again, that you can do. There are now so many positive, inspiring examples of this. So much so that the new B1G1 book, which is coming out in 2 weeks' time, actually, it's called Legacy, and everybody that you've seen on this thing is actually in that book. You can see the foreword is by Paul Pullman, the Unilever, former Unilever guy. And this is just an astonishing book. In fact, through MC, what I'll do, MC, if it's okay with you, I'll let everybody get kind of like a preview of that book. So it illustrates that we're doing some interesting things. By the way, this is one of the newest things we're doing. What we're doing now is allowing accountants around the world. This, by the way, is in beta, so it's not there yet, but it is about to be in about 6 weeks' time. About 3 weeks' time. One of the things that people are now doing is creating what we call hives in their businesses. And so what they're doing is they're getting people involved in B1G1, and then those people are becoming in a hive, as you can see. So now conscious businesses, there you go. You can see the way it would look. This would be your internal thing. So you can see what's happening. You can see what goals being done. And you would meet, and we show you how to do that with your hive. And you can see all of the things there. That's one of the things that you can do now. And it's all part of being part of B1G1. So it really is an astonishing and important initiative that we so would wish you to be a part of. Now, sometimes we can get all caught up in the technology and how really easy it is to use B1G1. It is such a breeze. It's like buying a book on Amazon. But we sometimes forget the impact of what's going on. So let me just show you this. And MC, as I play this, you might just let me know that it's coming through okay, and you might just let me know that the sound is on as well. Okay. This is something we produced when we crossed 100 million giving impacts. Have a look at this. I think you'll love it.
Today, B1G1 works with close to 3,000 businesses globally.
Oh, okay.
And these businesses are solving different problems and adding value to their customers in their own unique ways. The great news is that we are celebrating over a decade of giving and nearly 200 million giving impacts this year. 200 million giving impacts sounds like an impressive number, so it's easy to overlook the real meaning of this achievement. In the world of B1G1, your giving really matters. We see that each impact is in fact a smile that you create, and these tiny impacts really transform lives around the world.
ខ្ញុំមានអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំចង់និយាយទៅហ្វាគឺធំទូលំទូលាយព្រោះហ្វាផ្លាស់ប្ដូរជីវិតរបស់ខ្ញុំប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាខ្ញុំនឹងអាចជួយអ្វីខ្លះដោយហ្វានៅសប្តាហ៍ថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំអាចជួយបន្តិច
They've changed my life. I'm 100 times better than I was before. I've gained all my family back, I've gained respect, and I've got a good life now.
I would like to say thank you to teacher, B1G1 team, and all my friends. After my mother passed away, nobody supported me to study. I really feel thankful for the scholarship, so I have the chance to study. I promise that I will try to study to achieve my goal, and I will commit to help my family and all the people in my country. Thank you.
The numbers. Well, I hope that you liked that, by the way. And so what I'm going to do. Whoops, let me just change all of that as well. By the way, if you total up those, come on, I'll show you in a moment how you can total them up. And by the way, just been looking at the chat. There's some really fabulous messages. Diane, thank you for yours in particular. So I began, and yes, Lloyd, MC's answered that. So I began by telling you this, right, that this is not for everybody. By the way, as I was looking at that video, I'm not sure what reaction you had, but the reaction I get every time is, can you believe just by us doing what we normally do in business, that is what happens. That's the kind of impact that happens. So I said this is not for everyone, but maybe it's for you. Maybe it is for you. Now, if it is for you, then, and you think it's for you, then pop it on the chat. Just write in, this is for me. Diane, you don't have to do it. You already counted. So just pop it in on the chat if you reckon this is really, really cool and it's something that you'd love to explore in your firm. And I'm going to show you right now how you make that a reality. So keep those this is me's coming. And by the way, this is where you need the camera. Make sure you've got the camera now, okay? You need to get the camera, okay? Well, yeah, it would be good if you did, because you're going to need to take a couple of screenshots over here. Antoinette, that's awesome. Let me show you now how easy this is. So, being a part of B1G1 with all of the things that you just saw, plus many of the things that you haven't seen, believe it or not, I'll let that sink in. It's just $1 a day. That's it. It's $1 a day to be a part of it. And when you're a part of it, it's not just that you're, by the way, that's a US dollar. I need to tell you that. So it's a US dollar a day. And that depends upon the size of your firm. And you can see that over the right-hand side, left-hand side, I should say. And so if you're tiny, then it's just $1 a day, much less than a cup of coffee. If you're 1.2, still much less than a cup of coffee. By the way, you can pay it yearly or monthly. You don't do it daily. If you're 5, look at that, still much less than a cup of coffee. And even if you're a $12 million firm, it's still much less than a Starbucks. to, and I love the term that MC's used. You can see how this creates greater connection in your firm, and how as a result of that, it creates what MC has termed easy growth. And not only in this case is this easy growth, but this is growth that is just doing great things. Now, you can go right there, b1g1.com/belong, and you'll see exactly how to do that. Or if you've got your phone ready, go ahead, just scan that. There, if you've got iOS and so on, it will just take you straight to that particular link. When you get to that link, by the way, you'll then get into, I'm going to give you a little thing you can do. So again, make sure your notepad is there. So you'll see this kind of thing right here, where let's say you've said, oh no, I'm $2 a day thing, and you'd like to do it monthly. Then you see where it says referral code. One of the things you might want to do is just write in. You don't have to at all, but BM01051. And that means that you get linked back. There's no money changes hands. We can't do that in B1G1. We just have to operate so lean. But that actually makes you a part of MC's hive when you do that. Plus, there'll be a couple of interesting things happen as well when you do that right now. Let me just tell you one other thing I would do. I am going to send you this brilliant little ebook. It's called The Extraordinary Power of Small Ideas to help you transform your business. 19 of them. And Leanne exactly will do that. Just go to b1g1.com, Leanne, and press join. That's all you need to do right there. Or maybe Michael can put it on the chat. But Leanne, we will make sure that you get that. Now, there's a couple of other things that you might do. Wow, that's so cool, everyone joining us there. So make sure you keep that coming. And MC, feel free to interrupt because people might have some questions and so on. So there's that link again you can use, just join us. But there are some other things that you might want to do as well. So let me give you 3 things. If you want to spread the word, if, for example, you're a team member, thank you, MC, or you can use b1g1.com/belong. That's a little bit easier. If you're a team member, you want to spread the word to your partners, then you use b1g1.global/look. And that will give you a little 3-minute, 15-second look at all of the things that we've looked at today, plus a couple of other things as well. And by the way, you might know some projects that are close to you, some what we call worthy causes. If that's the case, then you might want to get them to go to b1g1.com/causes, and then we'll put them through the process and see how they rate and so on and so forth. By the way, notice that one is not b1g1.com, it's b1g1.global. Now, we talked about the impacts that are being made. I just looked at this on my iPhone just before we started. So let's take a look at where we are going. This is a shot of my iPhone screen. Look at that, 184 million giving impacts. Now everybody goes, wow, that's amazing, it's really cool and so on. But you know what? I think that should be 1.84 billion. And it will be that when you stand up and say, you know what, this makes so much sense, not just for me as a human being owning the firm, because I obviously create more engagement, and the team members will love it. They really will love it. They'll have their own app right there on their phones, and they can actually use their own funds for giving as well. It's really, really cool. But also for what's happening in terms of your clients, getting them tuned into and getting ready for this 2030 thing that we have to do. So this really does give you the opportunity to be part of something bigger. And when you join B1G1, it's very important that you understand that you're joining 3,000 business owners around the world who are collectively doing this, and of course bringing more people to the party, as it were, to make sure that this kind of stuff happens. So MC, what I'm going to do, if it's okay with you, I'm going to stop my share, look at that, right on time, and come back to you. And if you have any comments, observations, or whatever, then I'm sure, I know I'd love to hear them, but maybe people joining us, but I'm sure I'd love to hear them as well.
Well, Paul, Thank you for sharing the vision of, well, I'll say your vision, but it was originally Masami's, but your joint vision of what you're doing with B1G1. Quick thing this morning, I was down at a local cafe on the Sunshine Coast here, and a friend of mine who's staying with us, her kids are up staying with our kids over the school holidays. I had forgotten that she actually came to one of our masterclass events, and her husband runs an engineering firm, and they've been doing B1G1 for the last 5 or 6 years as well.
No kidding.
And it's just so, just reminded me of the whole ripple effect that imagine if the majority of businesses got involved in B1G1 and just did, it's such a systematic way to make good things happen in your business. It's, you know, it's not a substitute for other things that people are already doing in their life to contribute to their community. But at the end of the day, sure, business is about succeeding commercially, but at the end of our lives, I do think that we'll look more back at meaning than money. Not to say money's a bad thing. It's a bit like oxygen. We all need it. But the meaning that this gives your team, a quote I read years ago is people need 3 things in their lives: someone to love, something to hope for, and something to belong to. And B1G1 is just a powerful global movement that, as accountants, you really are at the epicenter of a ripple effect of positive change, because apart from doing it yourself, through to your business clients and introducing them to it. You know, Inspire, the example you showed earlier, it's talk about changing lives. It's changed their lives. You know, the win that they have in their sales about what it is that they do, and the team buy-in and the culture that they've created. It's nothing that you can create. You know, there's something magical about it when you get your team behind doing something more than what is on the scoping and the engagement for the year. Sure, do that, do great work for your clients, change your clients' lives, but B1G1 just allows that ripple effect.
MC, thank you, and you're right. And you know, I wish I was in the office today, because you would see all of the people who are working with all of the accountants and business owners. Because one of the things that's really amazing is that when I said to you with that $1 a day thing, you know, it includes all of the things you've seen, but it also includes all the people working with you to make this happen, so that it gets easy for you to create that hive. And just on that thing called belong, I was listening to Jeff Bezos the other day, actually pre his divorce. I was listening to him, and he said, the interviewer said, what's the advice you give your marketing department now? And he said, well, it's the same advice I gave them on day one. And the guy said, well, what's that in this world of disruption? What is that advice that you give? He said, the same one I gave him on day one. And he said, what you look for is that which is constant. And the interviewer said, so Jeff, what would that be? And he said, the need to belong. And so what B1G1 does is, right, it kind of strengthens that bond, if you like, that you would hope to have with your great clients. And of course, your clients will be great when they start using this as well. So it's, yeah, you're right. It's a ripple effect that's like no other. It's really cool.
One question, we'll just wrap up in a moment, conscious that we're 4 minutes over official end time. A question here about the projects, Paul, in terms of, you showed a lot of examples and based in different countries, but for those located in a particular country like Australia, what sort of projects, can you give some examples of some of the projects that people can give through if they wanted to go through an Australian organisation?
Sure. And in fact, they can go up on the B1G1 site and just look Australia, and you'd see them there. And that's a growing list. It's not as big as we want it to be, hence the reason I talked about b1g1.com/causes. So you've got .com mob, you've got some water projects, believe it or not. We were almost had one of those, you know, the drought things with the farmers. But we have a process, MC, where you know, people have got to be rigid edge. And you may know that, you may recall that just a couple of months ago, there was a lot of, oh, that's not rigid edge. And we actually we had rejected those 2 organizations before anything came to pass in Australia. So it's a very rigid process. But yeah, there's lots of projects there. And again, we want more. that are there. But the good news is, if you've got a favorite project, then you should bring them into B1G1. You really should put them through the process. But also, you should do the kind of things that the Ballina guys at Common Hume are doing, and just use the mechanism to actually support those local ones as well.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. And someone's wondering what Paradox, our organisation, does through B1G1. And I love the example. You've inspired me today, Paul, with the firm that has each team member linked to, you know, the sustainable development goal that is important to them. But what we've been doing is buying a goat for a northern Kenyan family. And the reason we chose that one is that it provides a sustainable source of income and support for family through, you know, milking it and so on. We thought that's cool because it makes a difference, not just today, but ongoing. But I think what I'm going to do is go back to the team and say, look.
Plus, goats are quirky, MC. They're a bit like you. Goats are quirky.
They've got personality. So, yeah, ask the team what projects they want to do. And that might be a really good way, Paul, for a firm that's got team members can go, okay, let's get in here and have a look at it together. Let's look at these projects that really that resonate with us.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what happens. Exactly what happens. And then you know, sometimes that becomes part of what the firm's doing, but people will also in firms be using the B1G1 app on their thing. For example, I use it as an individual thing. And so I have a little giving story on my phone, which is a personal one, which says, every time I eat breakfast, something happens. I also have another one which says, every time I take a flight, 24 trees get planted. You know, I've never understood carbon offsets, but I know that when I know it's so good to plant a tree. You know what I mean? So, and we have families who do things like, you know, every time they go out for dinner as a family, the kids choose something great to give back, and it's obviously that would be about nutrition and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really cool.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's wrap, Paul. Everyone's got the links that they need there in chat. We'll also together email everyone who has attended and registered for today. Yes, there'll be a recording made available. We are recording this, so some people asked that. And I think that's it for the questions, Paul. So thank you, Paul, for setting aside a good chunk of your day to share the vision with everyone.
Wouldn't have missed it.
And thanks to everyone for attending. A bit of a different topic for Paradox because we're all about digital marketing. But at the end of the day, sure, you know, we help people make an impact in their business. But this is essentially the fourth gear. Once you've got your business motoring, you can make a bigger difference.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And MC, you know, our friendship goes back many, many years. And as you know, I just am so inspired by what you do and what you do for the profession and stuff. And, you know, it's just great to be able to hang out with you still after, I mean, by the way, people on the chat should know that we do that every week pretty much anyway, we hang out. And it's really cool. And so thanks for giving us the opportunity to spread that and ripple it. And I'm looking forward to all the great things that happen because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, or if you're on the other side of the deadline, your Thursday evening. And we'll see you next time for our next webinar. Bye.
Thanks, MC. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.